Okay, so I was on LinkedIn the other day and I saw a post from a recruiter in India, and she was saying that she had someone apply for a job who was a junior or a fresher in India who didn't have any experience at all. And when she said that unfortunately you need 5 years experience for this position, he ended up getting really angry. He was swearing at her in Hindi and getting really abusive. The thing is that she still wanted to try and help him and saw the problem that he had, which was that he had no experience, and everyone keeps saying that you gotta have experience, but where do I get this experience from? Because no one will give me a break. And I get that. I completely get that. And even then, she still wanted to help him, and she was making this post saying, I wish there was a way that we could build a program for people to get experience in the beginning. In other words, she had empathy for that person, saw in his shoes what it must be like to have zero experience in every position saying minimum 5 years experience. It's like, where do I get that experience from in the first place if everywhere requires experience? That's the tricky part that we all deal with. Now, the thing is that swearing and abusing people is not going to do anything but blacklist you before you ever get started. This is the problem, the big problem that everyone has starting out, is that they don't have empathy for the other people. They don't think about what they are going through. In other words, why is a recruiter looking for experience in the first place? The studio is going to get thousands of juniors or freshers sending in their reels and they don't have any experience. So that's why they're hiring a recruiter in the first place, because they're saying all we're getting is people with zero experience. We need someone with a minimum of 5 years experience. Please go find that person for us. So this is the critical thing, is that the recruiter is hired to find someone with experience because the studio is already getting enough of that. In other words, the junior should be applying at that studio along with the other 5,000 people because they're the ones who are receiving all these resumes in the first place. Either way, it's lose-lose, and that's the problem. If you have empathy, if you put yourself in the shoes of the other people, that's when you start to realize, well, wait a minute, is everyone else sending in their reels too? Where do I stand on this spectrum? If everyone has zero experience and they have a reel and they're sending it in, there's thousands of people doing it, and they need people with experience, one person who applies, if they have experience, they're probably going to get the job. Now, on top of that, even if nobody, which is unlikely, nobody at all applies for a job with experience, but there's 1,000 people applying for that job, your reel has to be better than everyone else's. Now, how confident are you that your reel, as it currently stands with zero industry experience, is going to be the best reel out of 1,000? You're playing the numbers game at that point. And this is the big problem that we're all having, is that we just show up. We send in our reel and we say, all right, I did it. I mailed in my reel. You owe me a job. And then we get upset when we get rejected or we don't get a call at all. We get so frustrated, like, why are you not responding to me? I sent in my reel. Why are you not giving me the job? That's the big problem that we all run into here. And we need to think about this and be very empathetic and very aware about the situation. Mark Twain says, when you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. Now, I couldn't agree more with this, especially in the situation. If everyone is sending in their reel, everyone is applying for the same position through the database, the website, however it is, maybe you should be doing something different. Maybe you should be going against the grain. Instead of doing what everyone else is doing, you could be looking at, well, who is the person that's the head of 3D for that department? Who is the art director? Who is the key people who are probably the decision makers? Once I know that, I can probably go and reach out to them by myself and stand out from everyone else. In other words, when they see a spreadsheet of all these people with reels and then you're emailing them specifically, you're already ahead of the curve. They already know who you are and they get a conversation going. And this is something that most people don't do, and it drives me nuts, because if I were starting out, I would simply find all the key people that I need to reach out to. In other words, the decision makers, not the gatekeepers. In other words, not HR, not the person who is posting the stuff, the recruiter, whatever it might be, the receptionist. I would be looking for the people who actually make the decision about who to hire, and I would be putting my stuff in front of them. That gives me a chance to stand out way more than if I were just a name in a spreadsheet with my email and a link to my reel, because that's all it is once it gets to those people. You get a list, a spreadsheet of 100 to 500 people that you got to go through all of these reels, and you're just looking for an excuse to get to the next one because you've got enough other things to do besides looking for a new artist to hire. So these are the things that we don't think about. We don't put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. We just instantly think that we've got to do what everyone else is doing and go and apply for a job like everyone else. We're going to be the cattle and we're going to play the numbers game because gambling is so much fun. Play the lottery. This is not what we need to do. We need to think outside the box. We need to think about what's my strategy? How am I going to stand out? How am I going to get this job over everyone else? Because right now, having a reel and zero experience is not the thing that's going to get you the job. It's the relationships, it's the strategy, it's the hustle that you're doing. It's all the things that you're doing to go against the grain and go against everyone else and what they're doing. So I'm hoping that this resonates. I'm hoping that this sparks an idea in your head, because for you, for everyone, if you're not getting the wins, the traction you want, you got to figure out how to stand out. For me, I've got plenty of work. I don't need to worry about ever finding a job for the rest of my life, and I'm very fortunate for that. I paid my dues to get to this point, but that doesn't mean that I'm not constantly doing outreach. Every single day, I'm emailing people, connecting with people. Your network is your net worth, and it's all about raising your social capital. This is the critical thing that we all need to realize, and at the very beginning, when you have nothing, there's nothing more important than knowing the right people. Being able to say, like, oh yeah, I know the person who's head of 3D over there. They answer my emails. They've been giving me advice. Those are the people that really help. One of my friends, he used to go and just play Quake at one of the local studios in Germany, and he'd always keep sending in his reel, but eventually they hired him more just to get him to stop sending in the reels because they knew who he was, they knew what he's about, they were willing to take a chance on him, not because of his skill set, but because they'd gotten to know him, they'd built rapport with him, they built that relationship, so that way they were willing to take that chance. In other words, every single time, it's not just about your reel. Your reel proves that you can do the job. But what's going to capture their attention and get them to know who you are and what you're about and be willing to invest in you and even to risk hiring you, not knowing whether or not you're actually going to work out in the first place, is because you hustled, you built that rapport, you put in time with them, you had them invest back into you. These are the critical things to think about. You got to go against the grain, do something different rather than doing what everyone else is doing and expecting a different result.